Welcome to the rundown. This will be the last training camp special we do as the Broncos are out here for their last session of training camp where fans are allowed out here with the Arizona Cardinals. And boy, has it been a fun thing to watch. You know, these joint practices are always a good time to see how teams match up against other teams, their first units, their second units, all the way down. You're getting mixed sets. You're getting a bunch of different looks at a bunch of different groups. And most of the looks that I just got inside were of the Broncos offense. They were running the Broncos offense right in front of where we were set up. You were seeing the Cardinals defense, and they were going at it. This was a fun session to see. And there was a lot of things to look at when you were looking at the Broncos offense. The first thing that I wanted to talk about was the amount of targets that Evan Ingram was getting. He was getting a solid amount of targets in regular sets when they're at midfield, when they're at the 25-yard line or their 25-yard line. There was a lot of times that you were seeing him get the ball in the open field, or at least get targeted to get the ball in the open field. But the problem was, when it comes to his targets, was that as soon as it got to the red zone, he barely got any. He was not getting very many looks in the end zone when they were in a red zone set, or when they were in close encounters or close quarters. That's the best way to say it. So he wasn't really getting that many looks when they were close to the end zone, which you think would be the opposite. I mean, you got a big tight end, somebody who's solid, somebody who's been in the league and known how to run at the tight end position for a long time. So he knows what he's doing. So it's a bit strange to me that he wasn't getting very many red zone targets. Now, another thing that I was seeing was a little bit of insight into the RB room. You know, you're looking at the running backs, and of course, J.K. Dobbins and R.J. Harvey are the two big names that come to mind. But there's a lot of running backs in this room. You're looking at your Audric Estimes. Continuing our training camp special from back in the studio, part of the occupational hazards are the heat, and clearly the heat got the best of our recording equipment. But that does not take away from the fact that we saw some great things out there at training camp today. And I was going to speak next on Audric Estime and what we saw from him, because he's been kind of a topic of conversation. And honestly, with what's coming out about him and what people are seeing, it's not a good topic of conversation. And what we were seeing just earlier today out against the Cardinals is that he was taking snaps with the second team, and that might be the highest that he'll get. Audric Estime has had a poor camp, to say the least, especially compared to Jaleel McLaughlin, Tyler Beatty, Blake Watson, who's been kind of showing out, honestly, in training camp. A lot of those guys were performing much better than Audric Estime. So he was getting some snaps out there with the second team, but I would not be surprised if we see him become a training camp cut or a cut before the season. I would not be surprised at all. Now, another thing that we were seeing out there was Marvin Mims. And I could not be higher on Marvin Mims ever. Honestly, I've always been a huge Marvin Mims fan. I think that he is an incredible player, and he has separated himself as the wide receiver too. There was a little bit of a competition between him and Troy Franklin, maybe Devon Vele, but he has separated himself. Marvin Mims is the wide receiver 2 for this team. And honestly, it is the best thing possible. If he is not the wide receiver 2 in week 1 of the NFL season, I would be completely and utterly shocked. He has gone out there and he has performed at a very, very high level in training camp. When you're looking at him in the 11 on 11 session against the Arizona Cardinals, he was eating up. He was burning receivers. He was burning DBs. He was going out there and he was making a statement. And it should no longer be a question that he is the wide receiver 2. And again, I will be very, very shocked if he is not when the NFL season comes around. Now, a strange name came up a lot today, and it was really funny to see how people were reacting to this, because it was one of those people that you don't really expect to show out. But Lucas Kroll had an amazing performance at camp today against the Cardinals. It was shocking. I maybe saw him catch 4 or 5 passes just today while he was out there. And maybe the catching part isn't as crazy, but the fact that he got 4 or 5 targets while running some sets with the first team was incredible. He was going out there and he was looking stout. It was incredible to see what Lucas Kroll was able to do. He had multiple targets and catches. He was making himself a threat on the receiving end of the football, and that is not something that we have come or became or are used to when it comes to Lucas Kroll. He was going out there and he was performing at a very high level, and it was crazy to see. It was honestly, it was the talk of the camp. A lot of the people out there were really noticing how well Lucas Kroll was playing. Now, here's one person that I want to talk about. And again, these are all things that I just saw today at the Arizona Cardinals joint practice with the Denver Broncos out there at Dove Valley. Sam Ehlinger is not a name that has come up often. When you're talking about the quarterbacks, you're hearing, of course, Bo Nix. Bo Nix is the quarterback of the future. There's no question about that. Jarrett Stidham, though, as I was talking about yesterday, has had an incredible camp and an incredible preseason performance. What we saw from Jarrett Stidham was incredible. Sam Ehlinger, though, has kind of been the butt of the joke. He's kind of gotten a lot of, what is this guy here for? What are we doing? Why is he even getting snaps, really? He was looking great today. He had a few incredible passes, and there was a one that I highlighted to Jerjon Newton that was incredible. It was a pass very, very reminiscent of if you watched the Shedeur Sanders pass when the Buffs were taking on Baylor towards the end of the game, at the end of the game, the Hail Mary pass where Shedeur Sanders rolled out to his left, is a right-handed QB, adjusted his body, and then threw a perfectly placed pass. What Sam Ehlinger did today and his pass to Newton was very reminiscent of that. He rolled out maybe 10 yards to the left, got out of the pocket, turned his body, and then threw one of the most perfect passes I have ever seen right through the defensive back's arms and into Newton's hands. It was incredible for what would have been a touchdown. They ended up blowing the whistle, but Newton was not touched, and it would have been a touchdown. Something to kind of see there. You could see these quarterbacks who are deep on the depth chart really start to show out when training camp comes along, especially when you're up against other competition like the Arizona Cardinals, and things get chippy, as we know, and I'll get into some things getting chippy in a little bit. But another topic of conversation today, Garrett Bowles had to leave the practice field today and get into the ambulance. Now, Will Peterson, who's one of the writers here at Denver Sports, said he saw Garrett Bowles right before he left the field looking very, not great. He wasn't looking good. He looked very tired, almost like he was dehydrated. And with the heat that we had spoke about earlier, that's something to be expected. The good news is Garrett Bowles did end up leaving the ambulance and was able to walk away from it. I don't know if he rejoined practice. I can't make a real statement on what it was, but it looked like dehydration was probably the factor there. Maybe a little bit of the heat, mostly, a mixture of those two things. But luckily, he does seem to be okay. But it's always scary when you're out there and you're seeing players leave the field to get into the ambulance. Now, again, we didn't see the ambulance's lights turn on. We didn't see him leave the lot, and he was able to walk himself back out. But again, something you want to keep an eye on, especially when the heat is as bad as it is today. Now, when I was talking about things getting chippy, this was one of my most favorite moments of camp so far. And how can you not love this? But on a special team snap, they had both parties, the Broncos and the Cardinals, going out there to play some special teams. And at one point, whistles start blowing, and you hear people yelling, and everybody in the radio booth starts standing up and looking. And we see a huge scuffle between the Broncos and Cardinals players. And I can only estimate, but I would say that there was probably 20 players on each side in this scuffle going on. They were all going at it. Yelling was happening. Whistles are being blown. They ended up breaking it up, but it probably went on for 30 seconds. I mean, we had a huge scuffle on the West Field at training camp. And the fans are just loving it. You hear the fans all start yelling. They're getting into it. But that comes with these training camps and these hosted practices where you're bringing people over, especially people like the Cardinals, where we know Baron Browning is. They might not have some, they might have a little bit of bad blood for the Broncos over there. And I'm not going to blame it all on Baron Browning. I couldn't even see which players were involved. JL Skinner apparently was out there chirping afterwards, but always very fun to see that kind of stuff happen in training camp, because why don't you want the competition out there? That's all you can want. Competition. You're going out there to compete. You're getting ready for a game on Saturday. You go out there to compete. So we got a little bit of a competitiveness. You get a little bit of fire out there when you're seeing the Cardinals. And then another few things I wanted to touch on. They were doing some red zone snaps, and there was a lot to be looked at in the red zone. And immediately when the red zone starts coming out, you're seeing how they're working. And again, this is the Broncos offense out there working. Things are going to happen. You're going to see a lot of what the targets are going to look like when the regular season comes around. And the first thing that I said when the red zone unit came out, I looked over to Cecil Lammey and I said, I want to know how many targets. I don't care about the catches. I want to know how many targets right away is Evan Ingram going to get, because that's a very interesting player to me. Of course, Sean Payton has referred to him as a joker. So if you're looking for a red zone touchdown, how many times is Evan Ingram going to get that ball? I didn't see him get very many targets. I saw him get one target from Jarrett Stidham. But what I also saw from Jarrett Stidham was a red zone interception. And those kind of things are not great. When you're making a name for yourself in camp, you're throwing a red zone interception to the Arizona Cardinals. Never something that you want to happen. But Evan Ingram was not really a huge factor in the red zone offense from the limited play snaps or plays that we saw when they were lined up in that red zone formation. Now, another thing, in the red zone, you're looking at who the best red zone target is. And for years past, it has always been Courtland Sutton. I mean, the guy can haul in any ball. He can do it all. I mean, Courtland Sutton is the guy when it comes to the red zone. And for him, when it was the red zone, when it was those plays, I saw 3 red zone targets, 3 red zone catches, and a touchdown. Courtland Sutton is in game mode. He is ready to play. These are the kind of things that we've seen from Courtland Sutton in years past. We know that he is a red zone player. He can make plays. He can go up and get the ball. He's a jumper. He has the athletic ability. He can get up there and catch it over anybody. So seeing him get out there early in training camp and practice what he knows best, it's always a fun time. We know what he is capable of, and clearly he does too, as he went out there and showed it all. Now, I do want to move on because all of this training camp talk is great. And unfortunately, this is the last day that fans were allowed at training camp. So no more training camp specials really coming. But it was a very fun time. The Cardinals would come in here. You know, it's always great to see how these teams match up against each other when it's a very closed encounter, when it's a closed space, enclosed observation unit. You're not seeing 10,000 fans, or more than that, I guess, 50,000 fans all around you. You're just seeing these guys go out there to work. But another topic of conversation about the Broncos popped up yesterday, and that's with Colin Cowherd. Colin Cowherd went on his show, The Herd, on FS1, and he spoke about the Denver Broncos and how well they've been in training camp so far, and how well they've built this team, what their additions have been. They've really grown in this offseason. And he went on to say that they could win the division. Colin Cowherd said Denver maybe has the best camp so far in the league. Every reporter that's been there, wow. And he was saying basically all the reporters out there have been wowed by, training camp and what this team has done in the preseason. And he has them beating the Chiefs and the Chargers and the Raiders, the little brother. He has the Raiders pushed to the side, losing the division, but he has them beating both the Raiders, or the Chargers, and the Chiefs to win the division. And of course, we know that winning the division is Sean Payton's goal. That's what Sean Payton has his mind set towards. He has nothing else on his mind. He wants the team to be comfortable in winning the Super Bowl or talking about the Super Bowl, but the first goal is winning the division. So hearing somebody like Colin Cowherd say that it's very possible that they go out there and win the division is not only comforting, but it's good to know that people are noticing how well the Broncos are crafted and how successful they can be if they play at their maximum potential. So watching that, knowing that people are being wowed by the Broncos, it gives a little bit of a sigh of relief. You understand that we're out of this. We're out of the Russell Wilson days. It is time for the Bo Nix days, and winning a division could happen this year. Now, that'll be it for the rundown today. Thank you guys for bearing with me through all of this. Again, occupational hazards being out there. The heat can get the best of you, but luckily we're able to come back here and let you guys know everything that's been going on down at training camp. It's been a pleasure to hang out with you all for the past couple of days. Richie Carney will be back with you all tomorrow. But until then, y'all have a great rest of your day, and I will see you all later. Bye, y'all.
I do what I love what I do. It's second nature to put in the work.